You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
Hi, I'm Maria Varmazes, and I'm the host of T-Minus, the only daily podcast for the space industry. Every weekday, I'll be covering the latest news in space technology, business, and governance by talking with the people who are forging the path in this new space era. If you're a space professional looking to separate the signal from the noise and stay current on what's happening, this show is for you. Join me every day for T-Minus, the daily space industry podcast. Listen on all major podcast platforms or visit space.n2k.com. That's space.n2k.com.
And now, a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud, the cybercrime analytics leader. SpyCloud disrupts cybercrime by telling you what criminals know about your business and your customers, so you can take action to prevent ransomware, account takeover, and online fraud. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, including credentials, cookies, and PII siphoned from malware-infected devices. With knowledge of the specific data criminals have in hand from InfoStealer malware on managed and unmanaged devices, security teams can respond with a more efficient and effective process called post-infection remediation. Get SpyCloud's post-infection remediation guide outlining the 7 steps for preventing a malware infection from becoming a full-blown ransomware incident. Visit spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. And we thank SpyCloud for sponsoring our show. An Iranian threat actor exploits end-day vulnerabilities. CSC exposes subdomain hijacking vulnerabilities. More on the Discord papers. An update on Russia's NTC Vulcan. Joe Kerrigan on the aftermath of a $98 million online investment fraud. Our guest is Blake Subcheck from Synac, host of the podcast We're In. And threat actor nomenclature. A scorecard and a periodic table, no more. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. Microsoft this morning reported that the group it's tracked as Phosphorus and will henceforth refer to as Mint Sandstorm has developed a specialty in weaponizing end-day vulnerabilities, that is, vulnerabilities for which a fix or mitigation is available, but which some organizations have failed to patch. It's also been known mostly for reconnaissance and cyber espionage, but that may be changing, as there are signs the group is turning its attention to critical infrastructure. Microsoft writes, Mint Sandstorm is known to pursue targets in both the private and public sectors, including political dissidents, activist leaders, the defense industrial base, journalists, and employees from multiple government agencies, including individuals protesting oppressive regimes in the Middle East. Activity Microsoft tracks as part of the larger Mint Sandstorm group overlaps with public reporting on groups known as APT-35, APT-42, Charming Kitten, and TA-453. Over the past 2 years, the group has been observed carrying out attacks against infrastructure, and Microsoft states, given the hardline consensus among policymakers in Tehran and sanctions previously levied on Iran's security organizations, Mint Sandstorm subgroups may be less constrained in carrying out malicious cyber activity. And of course, we note in full disclosure that Microsoft is a CyberWire partner. CSC released its Subdomain Hijacking Vulnerabilities report, in which it shows that over 21% of the 400,000 DNS records it queried were likely vulnerable to subdomain hijacking. Subdomain hijacking occurs when threat actors take over a subdomain and use it to host their malicious content, which could lead to further threats like phishing or hosted malware. The report also showed that 63% of the queried DNS records showed a 404 not found or 502 bad gateway error. CSC explains, DNS records housekeeping is historically one of the most frequently neglected tasks due to a long history of different owners, policies, and vendors. The U.S. Department of Defense has decided that the Discord papers leaks are unlikely to affect relations with allies. The department is also working to make future leaks of this kind less likely and less troublesome. The Secretary of Defense has directed a comprehensive review of DoD security, programs, policies, and procedures, with a report due in 45 days. This study is in addition to ongoing daily attention to investigating and mitigating the Discord leaks. Two big questions have arisen in the Discord papers case. The first involves opportunity. How did the alleged leaker have so much access to highly classified information? Vice argues that expanded access is a result of the U.S. assessment that excessive compartmentalization and poor information sharing led to the intelligence failures that enabled the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Increasing information sharing was neither pointless nor necessarily ill-advised, but in this case, at least supervision and proper control appear to have been lacking. Inside Defense reports that the Pentagon is tightening up access to classified information. The second question involves motive. Why did the alleged leaker do what he allegedly did? POLITICO reports that investigators are looking, so far in vain, for some foreign connection that would make the incident a familiar, if regrettable, instance of espionage. But it seems increasingly likely that the leaker was motivated by social media cachet, not by cash, or conviction, or compromise. It's all apparently just the frenzy of online renown. The FBI has the blogger and podcast host Sarah Bills under investigation, the Wall Street Journal reports. Ms. Bills appears to have been involved in spreading the information from the Thug Shaker Central Discord community to the broader but still fringy internet. A U.S. official told the Journal she is actively under federal investigation, but the circumstances of the content of the investigation are unclear at this time. Ms. Bills says she's the victim here, and the Bureau is investigating death threats made against her. She said to the Journal, "I have been forthright and honest with the FBI and NCIS in regards to what my clearances were and what I had access to, which was literally nothing. I didn't leak the documents, and they've never even been in my possession." Since the end of March, the media have reported on activities of NTC Vulcan, a corporate operator working against OT systems under contract to the Russian government. The Vulcan papers, as the leaks are being called, revealed that Vulcan is engaged in supporting a full range of offensive cyber operations: espionage, disinformation, and disruptive attacks intended to sabotage infrastructure. On Monday, Dragos released a study of what the Vulcan papers mean for that last class of activity, infrastructure disruption. Dragos took as its point of departure the coverage in the Washington Post, and its researchers focused in particular on one of Vulcan's tools, a malware suite known as Amicit-B. The researchers found 4 key takeaways. First, the papers represent genuine leaks. Dragos assesses with moderate confidence that the documents reviewed are legitimate and were leaked or stolen from a Russian contracting repository. Second, it is unlikely that these tools and platforms are exclusively used for testing or training purposes. They represent a real operational capability. And finally, Amicit-B represents a clear potential threat to the rail transportation and petrochemical sectors. Dragos says modules contained in the Amicit-B platform could allow for a range of impacts in rail and petrochemical environments, which could result in physical consequences, including damage to physical equipment or creating unsafe conditions where injury and loss of life are possible. And what Amiset-B seems designed to do comes from a familiar Russian military intelligence playbook. As Dragos puts it, the capabilities described are consistent with previous attacks attributed to various units of the Russian military's GRU, with tactics, techniques, and procedures overlapping with multiple identified threat groups. The Amiset-B platform shows an interesting convergence of cyber operations with traditional signals intelligence and electronic warfare operations, and it's very much a combat support system intended for battlefield use by a combatant commander. Before we leave you today, and let those of you who are just getting around to it to get back to filing those tax returns that are due before midnight, not you, of course, but those other people, let's return to threat activity nomenclature. Why change from Phosphorus to Mint Sandstorm, as Microsoft has just done today? It's a shift in the way Redmond names threat actors. The company is moving away from giving them elemental names and toward giving them meteorological ones. Henceforth, they'll name them as follows. Blizzard will mean Russia. Sleet, henceforth, stands for North Korea. Typhoon represents China. Sandstorm, as in this first usage, will designate Iranian activity. Storm will be used for groups in development. Tempest denotes financially motivated groups. Tsunami will be reserved for a private sector offensive actor. And finally, Flood will denote an influence operation. So, you'll be able to tell the players by the scorecard without reference to the periodic table. Coming up after the break, Joe Carrigan on the aftermath of a $98 million online investment fraud. Our guest is Blake Sobczak from Synack, host of the podcast, We're In. Stay with us. And now, a word from our sponsor, KnowBe4. Where would InfoSec professionals be without users making security mistakes? Working less than 60 hours per week, maybe. Actually having a weekend every so often. While user behavior can be a challenge, they can also be an InfoSec professional's greatest asset once properly equipped. Users want to do the right thing, but often lack the knowledge to do so. That's one of the reasons KnowBe4 developed Security Coach, a real-time security coaching tool that takes alerts from your existing security stack and sends immediate coaching to users who've taken risky actions. Existing security tools will likely block a user from visiting a high-risk website, for example, but the user might not understand why. Security Coach analyzes these alerts and provides users with relevant security tips via email or Slack, coaching them on why the action they just took was risky. Help users learn from their mistakes and strengthen your organization's security culture with Security Coach. Learn more at knowbe4.com/securitycoach. That's knowbe4.com/securitycoach. And we thank KnowBe4 for sponsoring our show.
Never refactor your apps again. Never get locked into an IDP. Say goodbye to your old on-prem systems and identity management complexity. Now you can solve your biggest IAM problems with identity orchestration, even the messy ones you thought were unsolvable. Bring Strata any IAM use case like modernizing legacy apps to use passwordless authentication, migrating from one IDP to another, or enabling identity operation resiliency. Strata's identity orchestration platform is designed to extend the value of your identity infrastructure, no matter the complexity or scale. What's more, Strata's software is lightweight and flexible, developer-friendly, and vendor-agnostic. Want to see it in action? Share your identity challenge with Strata on a discovery call, and they'll hook you up with a complimentary pair of AirPods Pro. Don't miss out. Visit strata.io/cyberwire. That's strata.io/cyberwire.
Blake Sobczak is head of communications at CINAC, editor-in-chief of the newsletter README, and host of the podcast titled We're In. I spoke with Blake about the goals of the podcast and, of course, how they came to choose the title.
I mean, you've seen many cheesy hacker movies, I hope, right? And I feel like once you had that seminal line, we're in, you get that moment when you've breached the network, you're into it. And so the goal of the show is really to get inside the brightest minds of cybersecurity. And so the name was kind of a riff on that. But we did consider a number of alternative names, and We're In was the clear favorite. So the goal is really to interview newsmakers, innovators, government officials, anybody really making waves in the cybersecurity industry. And we want a good mix of people on the show. So we're not just going for those sort of InfoSec household names, although they are more than welcome and have appeared on the show, but also lesser known folks like Idne Piquant, who's a solutions architect at CINAC, who have a lot of insights to share, but maybe don't always get to seize the main stage.
And what is in it for CINAC here to support your efforts? What's the benefit?
That's a great question. And CINAC definitely has, I would say, some unique, what I call brand publishing initiatives, really. And I'm editor-in-chief of README, which is a cybersecurity publication that covers, from an independent basis, editorially independent from CINAC, just the top happenings of the day, right? So we have our changelog newsletter, we have our readme.security cybersecurity publication. And We're In is really an extension of that, right? It's a way to kind of give back to the cybersecurity community and actually offer some insights and really share all of the knowledge amassed in our huge, diverse community. And so that's kind of where CINAC's stake in this is really a chance to give a platform to more people and again, build that community. And it's not like a CINAC marketing vehicle where we're always trying to hawk CINAC products or share the next big CINAC solution or something. To the contrary, really, we're trying to draw newsmakers, right? People like, the head of the NSA's Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, officials from DHS. We had Nicole Perlroth on the show recently, known as a renowned author and former New York Times journalist. And so that's really the goal, is to kind of give back to the community, really increase everybody's knowledge and lift all boats. And I think that's just so important in cybersecurity, as you well know at the CyberWire.
And it sounds like that really is the value proposition here. I mean, there's no shortage of cybersecurity shows and lots of shows where folks interview each other. I take part in a few of them myself. What do you suppose sets you apart when you're convincing folks that they should give a listen?
That's a great question. And honestly, being here interviewing with you is a little bit intimidating in some sense, because you do obviously such a fantastic job with your show. But it's great to be here. And, I will say that I do have a quite an extensive background in journalism. Before joining CINAC, I worked actually at POLITICO as an editor, and before that covering cybersecurity for a publication called E&E News, short for Energy and Environment, where I covered a lot of critical infrastructure cybersecurity issues. So I think that's that knowledge base and what I bring to the show as host, and trying to keep things both conversational, but also drawing on that knowledge of reporting and just asking even tough questions of our guests really does set the show apart from some of the others. But I won't say from yours. But we'll just leave it there. I've only been in the podcast business for a little bit here, so.
You're very kind, Blake. You're very kind. So, are there any particular conversations that have stood out to you? Things that perhaps are unexpected or exceptional?
Well, I will say one unexpected moment was when a red-tailed hawk landed on the window of Proofpoint senior threat intelligence analyst Selena Larson in the middle of our conversation, which was kind of funny. She's like, wait a minute, there's a hawk. I'm sure you've experienced your fair share of podcast interruptions from various pets and whatnot.
Yes. Typically, it's chainsaws, jackhammers, and leaf blowers are our natural enemies. But
yes.
I don't know that I've had it. Well, I have dealt with people who've had cages full of birds in the room that they're trying to record in. So that's always fun.
That is not advisable, I would say, when you're recording a podcast. But I try to keep my orange tabby in the other room when I'm recording. But on a serious note, I will say from a content perspective, one of the more memorable conversations that I had was with was with Wired journalist Andy Greenberg. And he had a new book just come out, which I actually would encourage everybody to check out. It's just a fantastic read called Tracers in the Dark, really documenting this history of crackdowns on cryptocurrency and actually managing to follow the money back to some of these absolutely abhorrent kingpins and cyber criminals using what they thought were anonymous cryptocurrencies, and I'm using air quotes here, but in fact, actually, with the right mix of expertise and government intervention, could be traced back to where it all started, and actually wound up with some multilateral international law enforcement takedowns for some of these sites, which was it's really riveting stuff. And so I really enjoyed that conversation with Andy.
Well, Blake, the show is called We're In, and we are thrilled to have it join us here at the CyberWire Network. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Well, I actually wanted to ask you a question. We always ask of our guests something that we wouldn't know about them just from reading their LinkedIn profile. So I'm actually curious if you could share something that we wouldn't know about you, Dave, from reading your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, gosh. I would say this all started with a puppet show. When I was a wee child, I believe the first puppet I ever got was a Cookie Monster puppet for Christmas, from Sesame Street. And I started doing puppet shows for anybody, my poor suffering parents, friends, family, neighbors. And that led to actually someone realizing that I could do voiceover work when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And decades later, here we are. So thank you, Sesame Street. Thank you, Cookie Monster. Who knew, right?
Who knew? That is a fun fact. I don't know if we'd find that on your LinkedIn, but maybe you should put it, because honestly, puppet show skills underrated, I think, in the scheme of things here.
It's generally not something you lead with at a cocktail party, but also, no shame in it either.
No, absolutely not. Well, I really appreciate you having me on the program, Dave. It's great talking with you. And yeah, I hope some of your listeners will consider checking out the We're In podcast. It's available on all your go-to podcasting platforms.
All right. Well, Blake, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Blake Subchak from CINAC. He is host of the podcast We're In. You can find it wherever all the fine podcasts are listed. And joining me once again is Joe Carrigan. He is from Harbor Labs and the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute, and also my co-host over on the Hacking Humans podcast. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
So, interesting story here from Bleeping Computer. I suppose some good news. This is an article titled 5 Arrested After 33,000 Victims Lose $98 million to Online Investment Fraud. What's going on here, Joe?
So this starts off with a very simple social engineering ploy that we talk about frequently over on Hacking Humans. And it's from organizations. It doesn't really name them, but I'm going to go ahead and say this in here. Good old organizations like Google and Facebook and Trade Desk and all these other places that have ad networks. Mm-hmm. One of the ways these guys make money, and they don't do this deliberately, but it does attract this kind of person, is they sell ads to people that are running fraudulent businesses. So there were ads on social media talking about open an account with us, we'll make you huge returns. And people would open accounts with this business that didn't really exist. And the first thing they do is deposit 250 euros into the account. Mm-hmm. My hunch is that immediately that money's gone. But once they gave you, once you gave them all the information, someone would call you then, because when you open a bank account pretty much anywhere in the world, in the industrialized world, you need to provide a bunch of information, and banks say, hey, it's part of our know your customer requirements. We need your name, we need your address, we need your phone number.
Right.
So all that is has to be legit. And then these guys called them, pretending to be financial advisors, and they promised even higher profits on bigger investments, right? You know how much money you've been making that little $250 you put in. Why don't you put in like $2,000, $3,000?
Take it to the next level.
We'll take you to the next level.
Right.
They were dealing in something called binary options. I had to look this up. I've never heard the term before, and it doesn't really happen in the U.S. a lot. But basically, a regular option is the right to buy or sell a stock at a particular price.
Yeah.
And when you buy that option, you lay down cash in order to secure that right.
Mm-hmm.
If the stock goes up and you have the right to buy it at the low price, then whatever the difference is between the option price and the price that you can actually sell it at, that's kind of your profit.
Right.
That binary options don't work like that at all. Binary options, you don't have any right to buy or sell the stock, right? All you have is the right to, or all you do is you bet that the stock price is going up. It's kind of like, I would liken this to almost placing a casino bet based on a stock price movement. So you buy an option for $40. If the price goes above the option, you get $100, make $60 profit. If the price doesn't move above that strike price, you just lose your initial investment.
Okay. And
that's how these guys were getting money out of these folks. I don't know if they were saying, hey, you won today. Here's your $60. Look, it's in your account. Don't you want to make a big purchase on the next option? I think this one's going to go high. Oh, I was wrong about that. Sorry. I don't know what kind of social engineering attacks were going on inside, but they were running illegal call centers out of Sofia in Bulgaria. They also had call centers in Ukraine and in Cyprus, and they were taken down in a joint operation a little while ago, and now they have just arrested 5 more people, which is really interesting. One of the things that the article talks about, it says, today's announcement comes after Ukraine's cybersecurity police and the Europol identified and arrested 5 key members of another international investment fraud ring behind estimated losses of more than 200 million euros annually. So there's 93 million euros that was lost over a 3-year period, small potatoes compared to this other 200 million euros every year that these guys were making.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder to what degree are the social media platforms responsible here?
The social media platforms and the ad brokers.
Exactly. That's where I was going with this.
I think I would argue that ethically and morally they have more culpability than they might think they do. But legally they probably don't have very much at all.
Right.
They probably just have to demonstrate they're putting forth a good faith effort to not let this kind of stuff come onto their platform. And they're probably doing the bare minimum legal requirements to keep this stuff off. But in the end, Dave, it's still money that they make. If they thought this was fraudulent and they go, no, that's fraudulent, they're walking away from a sale. And there's a real, I don't even know if I'd call it a conflict of interest on their part, but it's a social conflict of interest here.
Yeah, a perverse incentive.
Yeah, there's a perverse incentive. That's what I'll say. That's a good word. That's Dubner and Levitt, right? They coined that phrase. Or maybe it wasn't them. They just used it a lot.
Okay.
And that's where I read it.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we say, it's nice to see some good news here, to find some folks facing justice.
Hopefully these guys will enjoy some time away in a nice, comfortable European prison cell.
There you go. All right. Well, Joe Kerrigan, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
And now, a word from our sponsor, Halcyon. Ransomware is still one of the largest threats facing businesses in 2023. The Halcyon platform was built to stop it through a multi-layered protection approach featuring full encryption key capture, automated decryption, and the ability to prevent other security tools on the endpoint from being unhooked. Learn more about how they're leveraging capsule network-based machine learning to reduce ransomware recovery times down to minutes by visiting halcyon.ai. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. The CyberWire podcast is a production of N2K Networks, proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. This episode was produced by Liz Irvin and senior producer Jennifer Iben. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. The show was written by John Petrick. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. This episode is made possible in part by RSA Conference, where the world talks security. Through global events and year-round content, RSAC connects you to cybersecurity leaders and cutting-edge ideas for a safer, more secure future. Learn more at rsaconference.com/cyberwire23. If you're like most CISOs, you've invested huge amounts of time and money implementing security controls to defend against external threats and protect sensitive data stored inside your organization. But how do you protect sensitive data that's constantly being shared with others outside your organization? The answer is data-centric security from Virtru. It installs in hours and protects information shared externally via email, files, and SaaS workflows, which means in a matter of hours, your business can confidently share sensitive data without sacrificing security, compliance, or privacy. For a quick and easy way to foster compliance with CMMC, ITAR, CGIS, HIPAA, and other data security and privacy regulations, get Virtru. It's affordable, easy to implement, and trusted by more than 8,000 customers worldwide. Visit virtru.com/cyberwire to try it for free. That's virtru.com/cyberwire. On a final note, our friends at N2K just launched T-, the only daily space podcast. Here's what you can expect from the show. Stay tuned for T-, ready to launch.
We are in a new space era.
T-minus 20 seconds.
Advances in engineering and manufacturing have given us access to the heavens in ways that seemed almost unthinkable not that long ago. Private and public sector cooperation in the space industry is leading to innovation that sometimes feels like it's right out of a page of science fiction. But these achievements in space are real, and they're bringing incredible advances in defense, communications, infrastructure, engineering, and science to all of us right here on Earth. And they're happening fast. Join me. I'm Maria Varmazes, and I'm the host of T-, the daily space podcast for the space industry. Every day, you'll get the news and analysis you need to stay current on what's happening in space technology, business, and governance. To do that, I'll be talking with the people who are forging the path in this new space era, from industry leaders, technology experts and pioneers, to educators, policymakers, research organizations, and more. If you're a space professional looking to separate the signal from the noise and stay current on what's happening, this show is for you. Join me every day for T-, the daily space industry podcast.
T-minus.
Available on all major podcast platforms.